Sitting here right next to me is Ellis Henican, and next to Ellis is Jim Pinkerton. Good to see you both, both Fox News Channel contributors. So here's the deal with the budget battle on Washington, which I think a lot of people are watching and they're just scratching their heads like, come on, let's work this out. Because in the grand scheme of things, Jim, we're talking about pennies here. We're talking, we have a budget in the trillions of dollars. We're talking about a couple of $1 billion here. Let's get it done.
Yeah, a couple $1 billion. Do you mind? Can I borrow that from you for lunch? It's to most Americans, it's real money, and there's principles at stake, including whether the EPA should be able to shut down the U.S. economy. That's kind of an important thing to fight over. And then we'll have to say, okay, look, this is where the Democrats stand. This is where the Republicans stand. Obviously, the sides are too evenly matched now to settle it. So let's have another election. That's what we did in 2010, and we'll have another one in 2012.
Yeah, and if we had a parliamentary system, we could do it next week.
That's true. We'll have a vote of no confidence and be on with it.
That's not going to
What do you think, Ellis?
Well, listen, what turns out in the end, and maybe this tells us about how we are divided as a nation. Jim's right that we certainly are, but how we're divided as a nation is that it really doesn't seem to be the dollars of the hard part. It's these extraneous social issues that have now become so emotional and so impossible to solve. Essentially, right? We have the social conservatives in the Republican Party insisting that we're going to solve the budget problems by cutting off federal funding for pap smears and other birth control services that are provided at Planned Parenthood. And that seems to be oddly, we're talking about shutting down the entire federal government over that and a couple of similar riders, right?
You're not saying the word abortions, which is also something that happens at Planned Parenthood.
Part of it is the abortion debate, absolutely.
98% of what Planned Parenthood does is abortion. 98%. And that's obviously a more serious issue, and it's important to a lot of people, including me. Let me add.
But hold on. Is that the reason we want to shut the federal? You know that that's legal. The Supreme Court has quoted. Some people don't approve of it. But is that really why we want to shut the government down?
Well, the federal government, the Hyde Amendment, has been trying to get the federal government out of paying for abortions since the 1970s. But look, the other issue, in addition to Planned Parenthood, was one I was alluding to, which is the EPA's ability.
It's the Clean Air Act that you're talking about.
It's the EPA's ability to treat carbon dioxide, which is what every plant on this earth depends on for life, which is to say it's not a poison, as a toxin, as a poison. If you think that carbon dioxide is the same thing as SO2 or NO2, the sulfates and oxides, then obviously you do what the EPA does, but that's foolish. Jim, it's their global warming, climate change.
Let me jump in here, because I'm looking at the wires while we're talking about these extraneous, according to Ellis, these extraneous issues. Hold on 1 second. Let me read this to you. House Speaker John Boehner saying Friday that a failure to reach a budget deal in Congress was entirely due to an impasse on spending.
He's saying that, and the way to prove it is to give up these extraneous, emotional, social riders here. I mean, I'm going to resist debating clean air with Jim. I mean, we have different views on it, and you can suspect where I think both of us lie on that. But in the end, if we want to keep the federal government open, and I think it's very important that we do, there's an awful lot of stuff Americans depend on their federal government for. But if we want to do that, the way to fail is to get into the most highly charged emotional debates anywhere in our history, and they include things like pollution, abortion, right? Maybe we can get into child molestation. There's all kind of ugly stuff we can get into.
Hold on 1 second.